Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Georgia Leininger. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of Salus Publishing, a book publishing house focused on publishing high-quality books by diverse authors and illustrators in a variety of genres as sustainably as possible. Welcome to the show, Georgia.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome to the show, Georgia. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about sustainable book publishing. But before that, we want to understand a bit about your story, your journey, Georgia, so that people know exactly who they are listening to.
Hi, well, I'm Georgia Leininger. I live in California in the United States. I am a published book author of 3 children's books. And right before the pandemic started, so back in 2020, I started my own book publishing house. But I started it with the idea of publishing sustainably. Now, that can look a lot of different ways, but publishing sustainably for us means that every one of our books are printed on 100% recycled paper or tree-free papers. So our mailers, our promo materials, and like our books as well are all on paper that has not, basically it's been either recycled or doesn't involve killing trees. So yeah. We've worked with a variety of authors and illustrators on 4 different continents, and we're very excited.
Wonderful, wonderful, Georgia. So now coming to the sustainable part of books. So I want to understand for the audience, and especially a lot of people who are looking at publishing in today's time. One is the recycled paper, and another is the tree-free papers. Help us understand what is the process you use. Recycled papers means already the paper, then you reuse it, those paper which has been used already. And what are the tree-free papers? Help us understand what is the process of your publishing?
Okay, so now as a publisher, we don't make the paper ourselves, right? We work with printers who make the paper. So now when it comes to paper, trees have only been used for making paper for the last about 500 years, but paper has been around for thousands of years. Paper originally was made from jute and the kanaf, and basically the hemp plants. Like when you think of ancient Egypt or even in China or, in India, paper's been made from lots of different plants over the years. Or of course, even vellum, like animal skins, like leather. Some of the oldest books that we have actually don't involve trees at all. So it's only been in the last, like I say, about 400 to 500 years that we've really used trees. Trees are actually a very inefficient way to make paper. You need a great deal of chemicals in order to use them, like chlorines and acids, to break down those very strong fibers in paper. And then all those chemicals, once you use them to make that paper, they just get sent down the river. So there's a lot of chemical waste involved. A lot of the pulp and a lot of that process to make the paper has even more waste involved. So the paper that you see in books, every time you hold a book, almost all books are printed on tree paper. And so all of those chemicals, all of that stuff was used to make it. Now, sometimes publishers or other even newspapers or magazines, rarely, but they can take that paper and recycle it, basically remulch it, break it down again. And since those fibers have been broken down once already, they really don't need that many chemicals again to reform it into a new form of paper, right? With the colors and all that other kind of stuff. So recycled paper is much more environmentally friendly in that you have a lot less waste. You didn't have to cut another tree down to use it. And, there's a lot less stuff we don't want on our waters. So by using recycled papers, you can get just as high of quality as paper that you wanted in the first place. And it's just better for our environment.
Right. And the tree-free papers, is it the same thing?
So for the tree-free paper, so like I mentioned before, originally paper was not made from trees. So when you talk about tree-free papers, it's literally going back to kind of the original sources for paper. So kanaf, jute. Basically, there's 12 different plants in the hemp family, And all of those plants, they can be broken down to be made into papyrus or a paper much, much, much easier than trees. So some of the tree-free products that we've used are using, like I say, kanaf. There's jute, there's bamboo. Bamboo is becoming more and more popular here in the United States as a tree-free option. And they make beautiful papers, just as high quality as tree paper, and they're just so much more sustainable.
Right. And a reader won't be able to distinguish between the earlier paper and this new one.
No, and like I've been kind of studying papers for, gosh, 25 years now. And that was originally the idea. That was originally the stigma of, oh, if you used recycled paper, it's not going to be nearly as good. It's going to come out a wrong color. It's going to feel off. And that's not the case anymore. Like, we have made so many advancements in so many other technologies. We've done that with paper too. So, our recycled paper books are just as high quality as any other out there.
Right, Georgia. Now let's come to the book publishing part of it. How did you get into book publishing, especially when self-publishing, especially in the last few years, has grown up? Just tell us a bit about your journey, or your venturing into book publishing.
Absolutely. So I started off as an author. And so I wrote my first children's book when I was pregnant with my son. And I was so excited. And I went through the routes that people are supposed to go through when, to get published, where you send your manuscript out and you get those rejections. And then you send it out to agents and then you get those rejections. And it took me a long time. And finally, I worked with a publisher and I got my first book published. And as an author, you get very little say in what kind of paper you want to use, or the size of the book, or any kind of thing like that. As an author, you're very limited. Those are your words, but the publisher is incurring all of the cost. So my second book that I wrote, I actually did self-publish. I went through Amazon's KDP, like self-publishing. And it was a great process. And for both books, I worked with the same illustrator who I absolutely love. Her name is Jo Gershman. She has her own website, and she's just a phenomenal artist and designer and illustrator. And so for the self-publishing, for those interested in it, it is a wonderful kind of way to go about it. But you do still need good art. You do still need to get your works edited, to make sure that your grammar and everything is all perfect and everything looks good. And then, for my third book, I knew that I wanted to publish it the way in which I wanted to, as far as sustainable papers and, tree-free. And I didn't find a publisher out there that could do that. And as an author for years, going to conferences and meeting other authors, I had met several who had phenomenal stories and they just couldn't get them published. And so sometimes you need to be the change you want to see. So I started my own company and I started publishing other authors. And so it's been phenomenal. It's been a wonderful experience.
Right. So how many years now about book publishing?
Let's see. So I became an author in 2016. My book was published in 2017. And then as far as being a publisher, we started in very early 2020. So we're going on 4.5 years now. And so we've got 9 titles. So I've been working with multiple authors and illustrators, in the UK and in Canada, and it's been wonderful.
Wonderful. So I see it as 4.5 years of saving a lot of trees that way.
Thank you. Yes. Yep. Yes. That's our plan. Yep.
Yeah. Wonderful. So now looking at the book publishing business,
yes.
How has been your experience? Is it a profitable business for everyone, anyone who listens, or is it a lot of pain and that you are there because of passion? Why? Because a lot of people are, in different parts of the world, they will book publishing as an avenue for themselves, but may not know about the ups and downs. So I want you to share some of these things, the challenges that you faced, so that they know what is it like getting into this business.
Oh, absolutely. Book publishing, it is not. Well, I should say this. It can be. I think for anyone you have the chance to make it a very profitable story, and and there are many authors that I know who have over the years built a life on writing. But it is extremely hard work, and it is a work of passion, like you say. As a publisher, I absolutely adore every book that we have published. I adore every author that I have worked with and every illustrator. And so as a publisher, I get to make the choice of, I will promote and fight for these books till the end of my days. As an author, and I think it depends on each genre too. So for like our background is in children's books. Now the average children's book, a successful children's book sells about 3,000 copies. Now that's just kind of statistics here in the United States. I'm not quite sure how, it is in the other countries, but if you think about an author makes about 10% royalties, that's average. So 10%, let's say if your book, sells for $10, and, just kind of as an estimate, well, that's $1 a book. And if your book is successful and you sold 3,000 copies, then that is $3,000. And that can be over the lifespan of the book. That can take years. So I think it really all depends on really just how much an author is willing to promote their book and really willing to get it out there to other people. Because of course, friends and family are going to want to buy it. Of course, that's great. But then it's the amount of, really getting it out there to other people and to the bookshops and to schools and things like that, like depending on whatever genre you're writing for. So I think ebooks are a phenomenal opportunity because then people don't need that physical copy. They can download it on a Kindle or any kind of electronic, e-reader device. And I think those are wonderful too. It really is putting in the work, and it's really making sure that you are passionate about the story that you've made and showing people that they should be passionate about it too.
Right, Georgia. But as a book publisher, how do you see this trend? Because self-publishing is there, your publishing is there. So how does it work? Do you see the trend going more towards self-publishing or e-publishing and not towards the traditional way of publishing? How is it? Is it that traditional publishing has made a comeback?
That is a phenomenal question. I'd say that publishing right now is changing rapidly, continually. Traditional publishing would love to keep things as it is. And yet there are so many people who have phenomenal stories out there who are tired and frustrated of trying to go through the agents and that kind of traditional process. So I think the rise of self-publishing and e-publishing and all that is huge. And so I think it is giving opportunity and voice to so many people who haven't been able to get their story out there. But with that in mind, that means that there are so many options out there. There are so many. And yet again, even with self-publishing, it's the problem of how do you get it out there when there are so many out there? Like, how do you make yours stand out when there are so many other options to choose from? And I think some of the biggest mistakes that self-publishers make is they don't go through that process of really getting their book to look as professional and as high quality as possible. Like getting their works edited. No author enjoys being edited because you think, oh, it's beautiful. My story's perfect just as it is. And it's not. You need to have someone go through and make those little corrections. And you make the formatting and the design and the art. I knew from my children's books, I knew what kind of art I had in mind. I knew that I was not the artist to make that art. Like, I am not a good artist or drawer. So I hired a professional. And so I think for a lot of people who are interested in the self-publishing route, they really need to put in the work and often the investment to make it look as good as it can. And then they need to put in the work that publishers do of promoting the book. Because once you've written it and once you hold it in your hand, that's phenomenal. Now what? How do you get into other people's hands? And so I think self-published authors sometimes underestimate, I know I did, the amount of work that goes into it. And so now as a publisher on that side of it, it is a huge amount of work, but it's so worth it when you're caring about what you're doing.
Right, Georgia. Now, in terms of a business, book publishing is a different sort of a business than regular product or services. How do you build a team for this? Because it's a different sort of a business. You need other people also involved who understand what the author is saying or doing. And even in the publishing aspect. So is it a challenge to establish a business of book publishing from that perspective, to build a team, or is it a easy job? Plus, you are managing so many people at the same time, and you, if I understand, you are also an educated in another field. So how does that work out, especially for you?
Well, the easy answer is, who needs sleep? Sleep is overrated. So who needs sleep? So yes, I have been a teacher for 18 years. I've been in education, and so I still am. I still love it. And so I manage my book publishing. It can be challenging, but I think, just as you mentioned, it's honestly about how you build your team. Like, I have a team of people with whom I work with on each project, and I trust my team. And then it's like, no one person can do it all. That's not possible. That's how people experience burnout. That's how you lose your business, when you try to put everything on your own shoulders. I think it's, like, for example, Jo Gershman. Like I say, she's a phenomenal artist and designer, and I have been able to trust her implicitly, and looking at the proofs that come back from a printer. And, and she's been able to look at them and say, okay, this color needs to be adjusted here. This needs to be adjusted. This spacing is off. She has an eye for such detail that I don't have. And so she is an intrinsic member of the team that I have built for my company. And for the authors, I have chosen my authors based upon the stories that they've told, based upon their talent. They are phenomenal human beings. And I trust them to, to do their edits and to do quality work. And so I trust them, and I trust my illustrators to do their jobs. It's a great deal of trust to build the team that really works for you.
Right, Georgia. Now, in today's time, a lot of several of the publishing houses I talk to, small publishing houses, especially who have gotten into this business, they are a lot into providing services to authors who want to write a book for building authority, building a profile.
Yes.
And that there is a charge. Nothing wrong with that. But that's a trend that has come up, and that is happening a lot. People are promoting their books, but they are not very traditional writers.
Right.
And you can't say they may be expert writers. They may be expert in one thing, but you will not look at them as an author.
Right.
How do you see this trend? Is it impacting serious publishing, or is it aiding publishing in the right manner? Because people will look at such outputs. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the publisher, but
Right.
in terms of the industry as a whole, how do you see this?
I think it's complicated. I think in some aspects, it's a very good thing, because yet again, it's giving voice to lots of different people who have not been acknowledged by traditional routes. So I think that is good. I think it really all depends on how it's framed and how it's presented, right? Someone could write a book and it's maybe about their experience, a memoir, and this is what they have learned over their life, right? That's their experience. When someone presents themselves as an expert, let's say in a field, if it's nonfiction or something like that, well, then there's certain kind of evidence you need to provide to show that you are an expert, right? If you're an expert, is that through your education? Is that through your work experience? Is that through your research? How did you gain that expertise? So I think, especially in today's age, and especially, in today's age, we have a lot of misinformation out there. We have a lot of things that people are purporting as fact, and they're not fact, right? Because there is no research, there is no basis for their, what they're saying. That can be dangerous, right? As we have seen. So I think it's kind of multifaceted, because you want people to have the freedom to get their voices heard. But then you also want that freedom of other people, if there is misinformation out there, to correct that misinformation and to be able to say, that is not actually correct. According to this source, this is the truth. So as long as we have the opportunity for an open dialogue, for open communication, where we can kind of, correct and comment and, as we see fit, then I think that's important. But yeah, I think it's just misinformation is a constant battle, right? So it's how you present your evidence, your ideas, your opinions. Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Right, Georgia. One last question is there's this whole new trend, just like it happened in social media, that all your contacts, all your following, or your build-up of equity is owned by another platform.
Right.
And it's also now being talked about in book publishing that if you publish your book on Amazon or any of these online platforms, they are the ones who are keeping all the contacts rather than you. All you get is a bit of money.
Right.
So a lot of this trend is happening that you get your books published, maybe in small numbers,
Right.
and then start selling it yourself through your website or other channels or through your social media so that you get the money.
Yep.
You don't have to give cuts to anyone.
Right.
Secondly, all the information of your buyers, it is your property. You have it, and
Right.
you can connect with them. You can't do the same with Amazon or anyone else later on. There, you will never know, or you will know only little bit of it.
Yep.
How do you see this trend? Is it the future of book publishing? A lot of revenues for them is going to come like this, and moreover, people will be more enthusiastic to buy directly from the authors, pay them more money, give them more money, more in their hands, and they will feel much more part of that community.
I think that's another phenomenal question. So the argument for the publisher side of it, where it's Amazon or a traditional publisher or whatever, is that they have put in all of the cost. They paid for the printing, they paid for the illustrator, they paid for the trademarks and the copyright, the formatting, they paid for everything. So by the time that book is out there, an author, hasn't incurred any of those costs. So the argument of the publisher is because the publisher incurred all those costs, they should get the majority of the profit then. And remember that, so let's say you have a $10 book. Okay. When you sell that book, let's say through a bookstop, shop, sorry. The publisher automatically gives a discount or a cut, to that bookstop. So the bookshop then gets, let's say, half, like $5. Okay. Now the publisher gets $5. And then the author gets, yet again, 10%. So that's $1. So now the publisher gets $4. But then, then of course you've got the taxes, you have the everything else. So I think a lot of authors do go in, if I do this everything myself, I get more of the profit for myself. Yes, you get more of the profit, but then you've also got more of the costs, because you paid for this yourself. So I have known self-published authors who, yet again, with the amount of work they put in, just like you said, through their websites or through their networking or through their school visits or, book readings or whatever, they have made their investment back. It takes a lot of work. And so I think for a lot of authors, self-publishing can be a great route that way, because it definitely builds in that motivation of really getting their work out there so they can make their money back. Whereas I think a lot of authors, who have gone the traditional route, they don't really maybe have as much incentive because they didn't really pay anything. And so, they will do the networking and the promotion that kind of works for them. It works with their busy schedules, because many authors do have other jobs and they just kind of fit it in where they can. So I think each author needs to really look at themselves and look at what they can give and what they can provide and how much time and effort and energy and money they can put into this, and to see, if it's worth it for them. Because I have known authors who have paid, quite a bit for self-publishing and they never made their money back. And that's unfair. So.
Wonderful. You have given good perspective to several of these questions. So there is much to understand about book publishing and all, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to connect with you, get your services, be engage with you professionally. What is the best way for them to do so, Georgia?
Well, I would usually say our website, but we are in the process of rebuilding our website, so our website will be back up soon. It is saluspublishing.com. We are also on social media on Facebook and Instagram. Our books are available on Amazon, so you can always kind of check out some of our books there. And yes, so yeah, through social media, like I say, the website and Amazon.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.